listed on the 2016 Population Reference Bureau data sheet. Also, if your textbooks on page 54, on page 54 in your textbooks, there is a definition of the GNI PPP. So for those of you who are out there, again, in your textbook on page 54, there's a definition of the GNI PPP per person, if you happen to be watching. So the GNI PPP per person is basically a way of describing a nation's wealth. So what we're going to do in a few moments after this PDF downloads is we're going to take a comparative look at the GNI PPP per person in the United States versus some of the regions that we are studying right now. And so I think we've almost got it to download, and I think it's ready to launch now. And so here we go. So we've seen this sheet before, but today we're going to look specifically at the variables related to measuring wealth. So we have the GNI PPP per person. Of course, for the world, if you notice, the GNI PPP per person for the entire world is $15,415 per year per person. So the GNI PPP per person is basically a measure of the amount of money there is to go around within a nation. It's a measure of wealth. If you notice that if we scroll down, we always like to compare where we are to the rest of the world, just to give you the relative term. So again, the United States, we are at about 56,000. We are at about $56,430 per year per person, if you notice there. So let's look at Latin American countries in relative terms right below. So you have nations such as Belize, $7,880 per year, Costa Rica, $14,880 per year, El Salvador, Mexico, and so on and so forth. So there's a wide range, ranging from Honduras, which has a low of $4,740 per person per year, and of course Haiti at $1,760 per person per year, up to the Bahamas at $22,930. See, you've got Puerto Rico, which is essentially a territory of the United States, at $24,000, and Trinidad and Tobago at $29,630 per person per year. So there's a wide range of wealth status within Latin America and the Caribbean. Didn't get South America. So again, let's see, Chile is about $21,740, Brazil at $15,020 per person per year, and so on and so forth. Obviously, none of these countries comes close to the United States. So in terms of this measure, the question is, what has contributed to there being this relative gap in terms of economic prosperity in these various countries? So if you remember on page 56 of your textbook, we spent quite a bit of time looking at the various economic sectors. So there was the primary sector, of course, which primarily involves extraction of natural resources. That includes agriculture, mining, fishing. The secondary sector is what? Starts with M. Secondary sector is what? So the primary sector is extraction of raw materials. The secondary sector starts with manufacturing. Tertiary sector is services. And the quaternary sector is the information economy, information-based economy. That's on page 56 of your textbook you have to look at. So notice here what it says about the primary sector. It says, many materially poor countries are poor because their economies and thus the livelihoods of most of their citizens focus heavily on this sector, primary. So if a country's economy is primarily based in mining, fishing, agriculture, so on and so forth, then it would be expected that they would be relatively poor. So if we perhaps take a look at another resource, the CIA World Factbook, for any country, we can get a breakdown of their economic sectors, of which economic sectors are dominant. So let's look at Honduras. Honduras was relatively low income. See what's happening in Honduras. See if this, and then we'll make a comparative assessment with the US. So here's Honduras and the CIA World Factbook. And we can scroll down to economy, click there. And so let's look at, okay, so make note of this. In Honduras, agriculture represents 13% of the economy of Honduras. Okay, so that is, just keep that in mind. They're at about 59.6% in terms of services. But if you look at the labor force, okay, the labor force, or where people earn their living, is almost 40% in agriculture. It's almost 40% in agriculture. Notice population below the poverty line is 60% of this population is in poverty. Lots of people in agriculture. So that really bears out what we were saying before. If you have an economy that's based in the primary sector, let's look at another country. They're going to be relatively poor. Let's look at Bolivia. So let's go to Bolivia. Bolivia on the west coast. Let's go to the economy of Bolivia. Here. So Bolivia, so notice that the primary industries are largely in the primary sector. The main industries are largely in the primary sector. Mining, petroleum, very top. Notice 32% of the labor force is in agriculture, 32%. That's 13% of their GDP is based in agriculture. That's interesting. Now they're down here. Notice population below the poverty line, 45%. And so this is based on the percent of the population living on the international standard of $2 per day. So this is not our poverty level. Remember, our poverty level was $24,300 per year for a family of four, right? This poverty level is based upon the percent of people living on $2 per day. Okay, that's maybe about $700 per year, approximately $720, $30 per year. So when we talk about poverty in terms of the international scale, we're talking about really, really, really poor, extremely poor in these parts of the world. Okay, so let's compare what we see here to what's happening in the United States. So we already know that we have a much higher GNI people per person, but let's look at what is happening in the United States compared to these other places, just so we have a frame of reference. Where are we compared to others? We know where we are for the most part. So let's go to the United States. And United States economy, just to give just a comparative assessment here. So in terms of the now notice the difference. Here we are in the United States. Notice that we only have 1.1% of our economy based in agriculture. Okay? 1.1%. Which should be surprising to some of us, considering that we produce a lot of food, but it's not the largest sector of our economy. The largest sector of our economy is in the services sector. And we'll talk about that breakdown in a minute. So again, high technology industry. So let's look at the labor force. Now you'll start to see the difference here clearly. So only less than 1% of our population is engaged in that primary sector economy. 1% of people are less than 1% are farmers, loggers, and fishermen. Almost nobody in this country makes their living that way. Most people, as you can see, are in professions, manufacturing, sales, other services, but not in that primary sector. And so as a result, our poverty level there's no notation here. I don't know there's no notation. I don't think that this poverty level, and that's 2010, but let's just go with our own poverty level relative to where we are. Because if a person is trying to survive in the United States on less than $2 a day, it's not. Can't afford it. But if we just look at what our poverty level is, it's $11,000 per person per household. Per person per year. Then we kind of get an idea of what poverty means in this country. As I mentioned before, some of you all, whether you're sitting in here or out there, are probably in poverty right now, whether you realize it or not. But again, even though your financial status as a college student puts you in poverty, it's just a temporary situation for you. You are obviously going to have some changes in your status very soon, perhaps within 4 or 5 years, however long it takes you to graduate from this institution. So let's look at some of the driving factors that result in some of these disparate conditions in the economies of these countries. We looked at one of the driving factors. You might ask, well, if we know right now, for instance, that having an economy based in the primary sector results in low income, why are these countries, why are they focusing in that primary sector? And you might be asking a further question, well, why is the primary sector so unstable? You know, well, the primary sector is almost entirely based upon environmental conditions, right? Can we control climate? No. So if a nation in Latin America is, I'm sure you've heard of the term banana republic, right? I'm sure you've heard of it. Maybe you were in the mall and you saw a store called Banana Republic. How many, you've probably seen that store called Banana Republic. You say, well, wow, and you walked in there and it's a very, very pricey store. If you've ever been to Banana Republic, very expensive stuff in Banana Republic. And you would think that the connotation of that term, Banana Republic, would make you believe that, well, anything that is a Banana Republic must be high class, must be very, must be associated with wealth, given the fact that that term is associated with this very expensive store in the mall. Of course, I can't afford to shop there. You can, maybe. But on page 502 in your textbooks, you can see there is a definition of what we call Banana Republic. On page 502 in your textbook, you can see that. So a Banana Republic is a country whose economy is largely based upon one or two export crops. And in Latin America, it's usually bananas or pineapple. So in some countries, say Nicaragua, their entire economy might be based in bananas or pineapples. So what would happen to the economy of a country, any country, if, let's say, a hurricane came through and just wiped out the entire pineapple crop that year? What's going to happen to that country's economy? It's going to be bad for them. They have nothing else to balance that out. That puts us at high risk. There's nothing that we can do about hurricanes. There's nothing we can do about pestilences. I mean, there might be a fungus that might infect a large sector of the banana crop, rendering it in ruin. And so if there's nothing else going on, if you have perhaps 40% of the population earning their living in that single sector, and that sector goes down, then that country is going to be in serious trouble. And there's nothing you can do about that. It's not within your control. So one day when you graduate from here, maybe 30 years from, not 30 years, maybe 20 years from now, you might have a few coins, a few nickels to rub together, and you'll start saving money in a stock portfolio. So should your stock portfolio be homogeneous or should it be diverse? Should be diverse, right? You should invest in diverse. So you can't have all your money in one sector. You don't have all your money in the health sector, because if there's a problem in the health sector and all your money's in the health sector, then you're going to lose money. You might lose all of your money. If all of your money is in pharmaceuticals, or all of your money is in one sector of the economy, so your broker will advise you to have some of your money perhaps in what are called blue chip stocks. Blue chip stocks don't earn a lot of interest, but they always go up. So a blue chip is like Pepsi. PepsiCo stock almost never goes down. It doesn't go up by a lot. You're not going to wake up one morning and be a billionaire, but it's always going to go up. And then there's your have riskier things like some new product. So years ago, there was a pharmaceutical company that thought that they had the cure for AIDS, right? They started to kind of leak it out. You might have a close, a cure for AIDS. And so I think when I started investing, the stock price was maybe $11 and something per share. And it went right up to like $89 per share over the next couple of months. I can't even tell you how much money I made. This was 20 years ago. But then they said, you know what? I don't think we have the cure for AIDS. What happened to that stock value? Whoo, went down. And so I pulled out just in time, but I still had my initial investment. But I probably made about $30,000 or $40,000 over maybe a 3 or 4 year period. And that's why I was in graduate school. You know, so it's never too early for you to start to invest. But that was very risky. That could have gone either way. So you don't want to have your entire economy based in something that is risky, like agriculture. Also, what about mining? What is it about mining, the mining industry, that might make it a little risky? What kind of resource, what minerals are what kind of resource? Renewable or non-renewable? Non-renewable. We can't produce gold and copper at the rate that nature produced it. And so when we take those products out of the ground, eventually we're going to run out. And so that is what happens to a lot of countries that have their economy steeped in one type of mineral extraction, whether it be petroleum or what have you. Eventually it's going to run out. Even Saudi Arabia is going to run out of oil one day. We won't see it in our lifetimes, but it's going to happen eventually. Well, again, that raises the question, well, why don't these countries just switch to other ways of making money in different sectors? Well, the easiest move would be into the manufacturing sector. Right? So why don't we have more manufacturing, or why isn't manufacturing competitive? Well, first of all, what is your market going to be like in a lot of these countries? Let's look at the poor countries. What is your market going to be like in Bolivia or in some of the poorer countries where the GNI PPP per person is $8,000 per year or $4,000 per year, or in Nicaragua it's $5,050 per year. 45%, 50% of people in poverty. What's your market going to be like? What's your customer base going to be like in those countries? Really? 50% of people in poverty? Okay, let's just put it in our context. Let's say you're going to open up a business, and you're going to open up a business in Nashville. Most of you all have lived here for a little while. Where would you? Let's eliminate overhead costs for rental space or property back. Let's take that out. I know that's good. Let's just take that out. Let's take it based purely upon your consumer's buying power. Where are you going to locate that? Depending on what it is. Let's say it's a donut shop. Where? Brentwood, Green Hills, right? This is where you have people who have disposable income. Now, you might want to be down with the community and say, well, you know what? I'm going to locate my business on J. Jefferson Street. I'm not going to sell out. All right? Have you been on Jefferson Street lately? It's very difficult to maintain a business in a community that we know is in that zone 3. Remember that zone 3 I talked about? Low income residential. The average household income around here where we are is somewhere around maybe $10,000. This is a very, very impoverished part of town. For those of you who have set foot off this campus, probably have. Scared. But if you have gone over on Buchanan Street, you can just go across Albion or Albion, however you pronounce it. Just go across that street and look at what you see. That's why that fence is up there. You got a fence. Unfortunately, we have to have a fence. We don't want to have a fence, but then we have people who wander on campus and engage in all kinds of crazy activities, which means we have, unfortunately, there's a lot of good people in the community. A lot of people who graduated from TSU live over there on College Hill. That's called College Hill. But unfortunately, there's a whole lot of other people who are in poverty all around here. Some of whom might engage in activities which will bring you harm. Unfortunately, that's just the way the world is. So Now, we looked at this on a neighborhood scale, but if we look at it globally, okay, now I think your thinking caps are on, maybe, maybe not. So if you're going to market a product globally, are you going to market it to people in Honduras? Where might you find the consumer markets where people are most likely to actually have purchasing power? United States, Japan, China. Well, maybe not China, but that's changing. I saw a really interesting documentary about China last night. Very interesting, about how the Chinese, China is still a poor country materially because there's just so many people. But in terms of their purchasing power, the Chinese tourists spend more money per capita than any other tourist that comes to this country. Now, right now you all are broke college students, but one day you'll actually be able to afford. Yeah, I was broke, man. I told you how broke I was. Y'all aren't really broke. I was broke. I was broke when I was in college. Y'all are going. I took my students to New Orleans. They went out to Copeland. Copeland. I was like, y'all got money, man. I can't go to Copeland. I'm in my room making bologna sandwiches. But Copeland, I couldn't afford to get a Crystal's combo meal when I was in college. It was $1.99. That's money. Yeah, I couldn't afford that. Like, really? Yes, really. But one day you will graduate and you'll have a few nickels together. Maybe when you turn 25, or maybe when you turn 30, you and your crew will all go to Vegas. Do Vegas. But now in Las Vegas, there's a casino and hotel built specifically for Chinese tourists. Right? Just for them. That's how much spending power they have now. Learn Chinese. You might come in handy one day. But so that's where your markets are. The United States, Europe, Japan, South Korea, countries that have people that have purchasing power. So if you're in Honduras or if you're a business person in one of these developing countries, why not just sell products to the United States? Let's just keep it to the United States. The United States is right here. Your shipping costs aren't that much. Well, here's the problem. The problem is in terms of overhead. When you all, I'm not going to ask because you're going to lie. I was going to ask how many of you all, maybe not. Some of you all might be young entrepreneurs, or you might have a hustle that's legal, a legal hustle, right? I mean, that's the millennial generation. You all are a lot better at starting businesses. One of my students, y'all sell everything, hair. Yeah, people sell hair. No, the fellas were like, hair? How you sell hair? Yeah, guys, they sell hair, man. It's big business. Guys sell. Anyway, don't let me get started. But hey, it's money, right? It's green, right? It's great. So if you own a business, your greatest overhead cost is what? What's that? Nope. Your greatest overhead cost is what? It's easy. Nope. Think about it. Are you in business? If you have a business, are you working by yourself? Labor, exactly. Your greatest overhead cost is labor. Labor. Your people are going to cost you more money than anything. Now, if let's say you're going to open up a manufacturing plant in the United States. You graduate from TSU, or maybe not. And you want to open up something. You're going to make something. I don't know. You're going to invent a new. Maybe you invented a new tablet. Maybe you're an engineering major at TSU and you invented a new tablet. Maybe you hooked up with another teacher a student at TSU, and you created a tablet that can be used in the classroom. That hasn't really been invented yet. Really? I mean, an effective mobile device. How many of y'all were freshmen a couple of years ago when they gave y'all those little broke down tablets? Remember that? Y'all remember that? How did that work out for you? It didn't work. So there's a need. So if you have an engineer and computer scientist and an educator, so the educator has the pedagogy, right? And then the computer scientist can write the code, the engineer can build the product, and you work together on that product, you do very well. And I've seen it happen. I've seen students from this university, not just Oprah, but students you've never heard of from this university get together and create multi-million-dollar businesses. Right? I mean, some were in my class. So the people that you surround yourself with now might be your lifetime business partners. So be careful about, so the people you surround yourself with now could either launch you towards lucrative careers in business, or they could have you fall down the path of construction. So just think about that. Because now mama's not around to choose your friends for you. Remember how mama would choose your friends? Oh, you got New Jack parents now. My old school parents, they say, they don't bring that little Ronnie around here no more. No more Ronnie. You know where Ronnie is now? Woo! Right? Look where I am. Had I hung off Ronnie, I wouldn't be teaching this class. Y'all, some of y'all would like that, but I'd be jail. But labor is your greatest overhead cost. Your greatest overhead cost. So let's say you create this tablet. Now you're going to open up a factory in the United States to make this tablet. And you're not going to make it in China. You're not going to have a tablet made in Mexico. You're going to have an American-made tablet, right? Because you are a patriot, right? You wear red, white, and blue underwear in the morning and sing the national anthem every night, right? Because, okay, so now you have to hire some people. This is manufacturing. Which sector is manufacturing? Secondary. Secondary sector. So, okay, so you need to pay these people a salary, right? So how much are you going to pay them? How many dollars per hour? It's not salary, it's actually wage. How many dollars per hour to be competitive?
As a manufacturer?
Yes.
They pay they pay like $15 an hour in replacement.
At least. And this is high tech. You're not making furniture, you're making a high-tech product. I mean, this is going to be skilled high-tech labor. You might have to pay them a little bit more than $15 per hour. Might be 19, 20, right? Okay, is that it? Just salary? What else are they going to want? Benefits, right? You want a paid vacation. Can you work them 12 hours a day? No, you can't. No, you got about overhead, not without overtime. You can't do that unless you want to go to jail. So overtime. They want, what if somebody gets hurt on a job? What are they going to need? Workers' compensation, paid vacation, not just for the ladies. Ladies, if you decide to start a family, you get what kind of leave? Maternity leave. Fellas, if your wife, not your baby mama, if your wife gets pregnant, you get paternity leave, right? Yeah. A friend of mine, his wife had a baby. He got to stay home for 6 months with pay. So workers in this country are what? Expensive. Man, we want all this stuff. I didn't even list all of it. I didn't list all the benefits, did I? Oh, forgot about health, right? Health insurance and all of that. Yeah, we're very expensive. So what if you said, you know what, man, these American workers, man, they kind of spoiled. I think I'm going to open up a plant in Mexico. How much do you have to pay them in Mexico? How much? Just think. $5 per what? Per week. Not per week, per day. $5 per day. All these laws, Occupational Safety and Health Act, don't worry about that. Leave, paid vacation, are you crazy? Right now. Given that, but if you were able to relocate your factory in Mexico, let's say. So the price point of your product is, let's say it's going to be $300 for this educational tablet that you're going to create. And of course, because you heard about it here, you're going to call it the Padgett tablet, right? In honor of the person that introduced you to. Your name is after your mother. The Maybelline tablet. Right? How much? What's your price point? Let's say you had it made here. The price point is going to be what? Remember, it's made here.
A lot more expensive.
Probably $1,000. Right? Let's just say $1,000. If you make it here, it's expensive. You want to make some money, right? You're not making these tablets as a charitable donation to the educational experience of students in the United States. So the $1,000 if it's made here. What if it's made in Mexico? So let's see, your overhead costs are maybe 10%. Maybe you can make a higher profit, right? You could sell it for $500 and make it kill it if you have it made in Mexico. So why are these countries just jumping into manufacturing? Well, think about it. I don't want you to think about this or this person who was elected president of this country. Here's the problem. Okay, so your president has this whole America First budget, right? So he's trying to stop the import of products from coming into this country from overseas, A, because they use overseas labor, and B, if we are allowed for these products to come in without a tariff is a tax that's put on products before they come into the country, could U.S. manufacturers compete with the price point of imported goods from other countries? No. I don't care how patriotic you are. And some of you all are really patriotic. You love being in the USA. Right? And let's say you walk into Walmart and there is the new, let's say it's 10 years now, if I take you that long. And you have some kids, and you want them to have this new educational tablet they can use to teach themselves something. And you actually want to buy it for them. And in Walmart, you have the Mexican-made product that's $500 for the tablet. And then you have the one that's made in the good old USA, has red, white, and blue ribbon around it. Hit the button, probably play the national anthem. Which one of those are you going to buy? The $1,000 one that's made in America by American hands, or the $500 one that's made in Mexico? Which one? Sellouts. Look at this. That's the problem. That's how we are, right? So the United States, we know that that's true. Even if it's the same, the only time that we allow products in without taxing them heavily is if the consumer demand warrants it. So, for example, there was a time when Japanese-made cars were a joke. Of course you don't remember that, you weren't here. First, the Datsun V210, Japanese cars look like you got a car made in Japan. Your mama driving a Datsun. Look at her. Right? That was Datsun was Nissan before Nissan. Right? Then all of a sudden, the Japanese cars started getting better and better and better to the point where those of us in this country said, hey, we got to have these Japanese cars. And so that, you had trade deals that favored the import of those products. But except for that, and that's very rare. Or in cases, of course, with these iPhone devices, these mobile devices that are made largely in China, and products that are made, sold by Walmart. Consumer, we like cheap stuff from Walmart, don't we? I was watching a documentary last night. Walmart has deals with 20,000 different manufacturers in China. 20,000 just for Walmart. So when you go to Walmart, almost everything in there is in China, right? And are the Chinese to blame for that? No, who's to blame? We are. We like going to Walmart and getting all that cheap stuff. You can't believe how cheap stuff is in Walmart sometimes. You pick something like this is $3. They have a gallon of you can get a gallon of hair shampoo for like $3 in Walmart. You're like, wow, I can't believe that this hair shampoo is $3. This is for guys. This is how we shop for shampoo, ladies. How much is this? $3? All right, cool. Y'all are much more particular. You got a certain brand you use, you got to have hemp in it. You know, but us, we don't care. If it just says shampoo on the bottle and $3, we won't buy it, right, fellas? We don't care. We don't, ladies, they got different kinds of shampoo. But for us, we go in Walmart, you know, maybe it might be Punch, just cheap stuff, pencils, a whole 50 pencils in a pack, $1 at Walmart, made in China, right? So the United States in general is very protectionist when it comes to importing products because we know that we can't compete. So that sets up a very difficult situation for countries in Latin America that want to compete in the manufactured goods market. Because the people who are most likely to buy the products are in the United States, not in Bolivia, not in Costa Rica, not in a lot of places. And so that is a significant barrier to these countries competing on the global market because each country puts in protectionist policies to protect their own manufacturing. But don't be confused. I know a lot of you all are probably driving a Ford or a Chevy because you're patriotic, right? You wouldn't dare buy a Japanese car or a German automobile. You wouldn't dare do that, right? How many people agree with me, right? I drive a Chevy. I have a Chevy. I just like the car. Is there any such thing as an American, as a U.S. made automobile? Is there? No. Now the car might be made here, but the parts come from all over the world. I mean, if you Google Ford Motor Company supply chain or Chevrolet company supply chain, you'll see a map of your car and all the parts coming from all over the world. Now, it might be manufactured in Kentucky or South Carolina, Mississippi, but those parts come from everywhere. You know, one day you'll have a car and your alternator will stop working. You'll go into the shop and are they going to say, we've got, is the mechanic going to say, we have an alternator right here. Is he going to see if she's going to say that? No, they're going to say, you got to wait 2 weeks. What? Your alternator's coming from South Korea. South Korea, but this is a Chevy. Yep, sure is. But your alternator's coming from South Korea. Your catalytic converter might be coming from China. You know, so there's really no such thing as an automobile made completely in this country. So the global economy in terms of the secondary sector is very complex, and it can be very complicated for these countries to compete. So are these countries just going to give up? They say, well, you know what, we're just going to remain poor and we're not going to try to compete with the United States. And we like being poor. Is that true? No. So let's look at some of the efforts that are in place, that have been put in place to increase trade in this region. Let's look at Costa Rica. Let's look at Mexico, Maquiladora. Let's see. So the Maquiladora program is a program that's based in Mexico, and it's largely based in manufacturing. And so, beginning in the 1960s, the Maquiladora program was started in Mexico. It's a manufacturing-based program. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting program. It's specifically referred to on page 500 of your textbook. You see this? This is your textbook, in case you don't recognize it. But on page 500, there's a discussion on the Maquiladora's program in Mexico. So for those of you who are on Facebook Live, page 500, page 501, describes the Maquiladora program. The Maquiladora program makes it possible for foreign-owned factories in Mexico to import components for assembly without customs duties. Customs duties are basically taxes that are placed on import. Such factories use cheap labor and took advantage of Mexico's fewer labor and environmental regulations to assemble goods that could be exported duty-free into the United States, all over the world. So if you notice, this map shows how many people in Mexico. Notice most of these factories, these are factories located along the U.S.-Mexico border, and 80% of them are foreign-owned. So Whirlpool, for example, might have a factory there. There are lots of products that are made. And so you've heard about jobs leaving the United States for Mexico. You've heard about that, right? You've never heard about that? You've never heard of jobs leaving the United States and going to Mexico? You've never heard of a plant closing down in the United States and sending jobs to Mexico? Come on, I know it's probate week, but please just hang with me for a little while this week. I know it's probate. I know that y'all are just about tapped out. You got to have your stamina. You're gonna be a probate week partier. You can't tap out on Wednesday. It's just a weekend left. To go to the Kappa Kappa Jammy Jam and all of that. Alpha Kappa Jammy Jam, Jammy to the Jammy Jam. Let's see. Whirlpool jobs go to Mexico. Let's see if I get something. Sure I will. I know I will. So just type in Whirlpool. Whirlpool to shut Indiana plant, cut 1,100 jobs. 2 years after Whirlpool moved south. That's just one company. Or I might just type in jobs, manufacturing jobs, go to Mexico. So let me Google that, see what we come up with. Manufacturing jobs. More companies moving to Mexico, finding fewer labor. These 3 companies moved jobs to Mexico. Here's why. It's 2016, December 2016. Despite fears, Mexico's manufacturing boom is lifting U.S. work. Small cars moving to Mexico. So in general, this is some of the fear that your president has cast upon the voting public, that our jobs are leaving. Interestingly enough, I wish I could find the clip. And then you all see when Trump was on David Letterman, and he had his own products, his Trump products, and they were all made overseas, like in China, Malaysia. And David Letterman was just so smooth with it. He set him up. So this is a nice tie. Let's see, where is this tie made? Oh, this tie was made in China. He had another Trump product made in Malaysia, another Trump product. They're all made overseas. Fine. Son of a gun. Anyway, but it's not just Trump. A lot of people are moving their companies to Mexico as part of the Maquiladora program, specifically to take advantage of the cheap labor, which drives down the cost of goods in this country so that we can enjoy low-cost products. So again, this is largely driven, this phenomenon is largely, God, I just can't keep away from this knucklehead. No, just go away. Goodness, now my day is ruined. Try to have a Trump-free day. Clinton, system day. Anyway, so again, this is one way that at least Mexico, having such close proximity to the United States, is taking advantage of the market here. Maquiladora program. So here are the countries that own factories. So here, these manufacturers are located in Mexico. Here's the numbers of factories owned in Mexico by each country. There's 1,600, almost 1,700 companies as of the date of this chart owned by the United States for obvious reasons. And of course, some are Mexican owned, and of course, Japan, Korea, Germany, everybody's taking advantage of cheap labor in Mexico through this maquilador program. And obviously, it's good for Mexico because they are able to have people in their country employed, making products. And you can see the wealth that is produced by the maquilador program. Exports, employees, up, little dip due to the recession, but so 90, almost $100 billion in exports, and that was in 2005. So I'm sure that that number is significantly higher today. So the Mexican maquilador program is one way that, one example of at least Mexico trying to diversify their economy. Let's look at Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a very interesting case. I'm trying to think, should I go to Costa Rica or I'll go to NAFTA next? Because I want to talk about Costa Rica in a different context. So next I want to talk about the North American Free Trade Agreement, otherwise known as NAFTA, which in your textbooks, for whatever reason, because it's called the North American Free Trade Agreement, is not covered in Chapter 11, but is covered in Chapter 12 on pages 544 and 545. So on pages 544 and 545 of your textbook, take time out of your probate week harding and just take a look at the pages 544 to 545. Sometime between the gosh darn near naked party and step show. Take a look at your textbook. I know it's rough on you. I know it's hard on y'all this week. You're being pulled in different directions. So NAFTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. Well, what does it do? Well, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which came about in 1994, about 30 years after the maquilador program. Let me take a quick break here and see what's going on. It's still going? Okay. Okay. I don't know how this thing is only supposed to. I'm too cheap to pay for Zoom. So it's supposed to cut off after 40 minutes, but it's still going. Maybe I started a little late. It's probably going to cut off in a few minutes. And then I'll pick it up. So if you're out there, well, there's nobody watching. But so part one of the recording will end pretty soon, and then we'll go to part two right after this. So the North American Free Trade Agreement was started about 30 years after the maquilador program, and it has a much wider reach. The original partners were the United States, Canada, and Mexico. But because the United States and Canada are on almost the same level in terms of wealth and in terms of labor costs, the impact of NAFTA upon import and exports between the United States and Canada wasn't really that great. But between the United States and Mexico, where there is a significant difference in terms of wealth and labor costs, NAFTA has been has had a major impact for all the reasons that I mentioned before. So what does NAFTA do? Well, among other things, NAFTA makes it even easier for people in the United States to own companies in Mexico. It also lowers the tariffs that are normally placed upon goods that are shipped from Mexico to the United States. So NAFTA was seen as a boon to businesses wanting to do, well, U.S. businesses wanting to do business in Mexico. So it even had a greater increase on manufactured goods being brought from Mexico to the United States. So of course, unfortunately, NAFTA did result in, let me put NAFTA in front of this and see what we get. So here are some recent stories. NAFTA costs U.S. manufacturing jobs. NAFTA at 20 years, 1 million U.S. jobs lost, and so on and so on. Specifically, it says American manufacturing jobs were lost. So, in terms of NAFTA, certainly it cost the United States jobs in the secondary sector. Significant job loss in the secondary sector. But wait a minute. Now you might think, on one hand, that that's bad. It's got to be bad. It's costing us manufacturing jobs. We saw in the last unit the deleterious effects of loss of manufacturing jobs upon what used to be the manufacturing belt, which is now the Rust Belt. All the plants closing down. We saw all the manufacturing jobs. Right, so so if that wasn't bad enough, we had people leaving, companies leaving and going to Mexico in the 90s, on top of what happened in the 70s. Even more jobs going away. But wait, if more products are being brought into the United States from Mexico, how are they going to get here? How are those products going to get from the Mexico-U.S. border to dealers or to Best Buy or to Sears? How are those products going to get there? Transportation. What sector is transportation? Okay, is it primary, secondary, tertiary? Who said tertiary? Tertiary, surface, transportation. Are those products just going to be shipped here willy-nilly? Is someone going to have to account for those products? An accountant? What sector is accountant? Tertiary. Are those products going to be given away for free? They're going to be what? Sold. What sector is retail? Tertiary. So even though we certainly lost a lot of manufacturing or secondary sector jobs to NAFTA, it resulted in a net growth of 1 million jobs in the tertiary sector. That's good, right? That's good for people who are in the tertiary sector, like you. You all are going to be professionals, or maybe you are able to have soft skills, you're able to sell things, or maybe you can good math, accounting, you're a professional, you're at least trained. So let's say Phil. Say Phil's working in the Whirlpool factory for 17 years, and Whirlpool factory closes down and sends Phil's jobs to Mexico. Now, Phil has been making washing machines for 17 years. So Phil will be a great salesman, right? Not really. Maybe not. So it's very difficult for the individual who either loses or lost his or her manufacturing job to immediately transition into a tertiary sector job. So on an individual level, on a personal level, NAFTA has been very hurtful. And we might have seen some of that come out of the Rust Belt states with this election. That's why Trump's message really resonated with that part of the country. They lost their manufacturing jobs. Here you are, you're in this country, and your jobs are overseas, and look at you. And so and then you just feed on that whole anti-immigration thing, and then look at this black president y'all got. And it just resonated with that audience, but at the core of it was loss of economic opportunity. That's at the core. And so we know that when somebody's affected financially, that it can have all kinds of deleterious effects in other parts of their lives, right? So for example, what's the #1 cause for divorce? It's money, right? It's not infidelity. It's not religious differences. It's not, sometimes it's the children. People get divorced over children all the time. But yeah, money. I know none of you in here, maybe one of you, two of you in here have been married before. You think, well, I would never let money come between me and my life mate. Oh yeah, you just wait. You just wait. Yeah, what he said. You just wait. You just wait. I was married to one of my wives. Had 2. Done. Done. I've done my time. I'm over it. But no, it wasn't ever. I'm just too selfish to be married. Selfish. I'm not gonna put another woman through that ever again. But what you doing, bro? I'm selfish. But one of my wives, I'm not gonna say which one, she got married, right? She had been working for 20 years. She cashed out her retirement. Cashed it out. I said, why would you cash out your retirement? I have a husband now. You will take care of me. I said, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Shot. Yeah. Cashed it out. 30 grand, just cashed it out. Went shopping, shoes. We had so many shoes. I had something in the house called the wall of shoes. She had shoes stacked up, and there's a whole wall full of them. This is where the retirement went.
So I gotta be #1.
Whole wall, right? Oh yeah.
That wouldn't happen on TV.
What's that?
That wouldn't happen on TV.
Oh, I'm not saying it was #1, #2.
Well, they're gonna say that. It's #1.
No, it wasn't #1. So yeah, money. Money is the root of all evil, not the root of some evil. Not the root of a little bit of evil. All evil, money. It's the root of it all. And so, yeah, so money can have some, deleterious effects upon people's lives. So you can have a good person who loses his or her job and it'll ruin your friendship. Y'all just wait. Here's what's gonna happen to y'all. You just wait. 10 years from now, here's what's gonna happen to you. 10 years from now, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna graduate from TSU. You're gonna have somebody who was your dog, your friend, your girl, your BFF in college, right? Here's what's gonna happen. I guarantee you it's gonna happen to some of you. You're gonna lose track of them. You do Facebook, you kind of, and then you're gonna run into them one day, maybe at homecoming, right? You graduated, you've gone on, you've got your master in pedagogy or soil science. Now you're making 6 figures 10 years from now. But your friend didn't do that. Maybe your friend kind of struggled, boom, had a couple of kids, struggle. And now y'all meet up at homecoming, right? But this was your dog, your girl, your BFF, your boy when you were in college, right? Y'all was like this. But then you kind of go yourself. Now you come back together. And they find out that you're doing well. But now it's not going to affect you. You're not a snob. You're not going to be like, oh, you never graduated? Yeah, sure. We were cool in college, so I really can't associate with our college. Or you know, because you don't judge people based upon your money. That's what a friend is. You'll find out who your friends are when you're broke. People that are around when you're broke, those are your friends. People that come around when you have money, you don't know who they are. So cheap. And so that person who is your dog, your girl, your BFF, when they find out that you're doing so well, are they gonna say, I'm so happy for you. Your life has turned out so well. They gonna say that? No, they don't have to be with you. They're gonna avoid you like a plague because it kind of reminds them of where they should be. Right? Even if you don't care, even if you're not a snob, you hey, let's hang out, let's kick it. You know, well, I don't have no money. Come on, I got you, right? You know, that's how you do your friends. You don't keep score with your friends, right? I got you this time, you get me next time. I'm not gonna go, man, you gonna keep the team. No, not with your friends. Not with your friends. You don't keep score with your friends. That's a friend. You're gonna have friends you're gonna get for 10 years. But they'll come back. I have friends like that. Yo, D, you know I got 4 kids, man. All right, I got you, bro. I got you. Don't worry about it. Come on down, man. I got you. Got the room, everything. This kid, I need my boy and everything. 10 years. Then kids got older. He grew up one day. Yo, man, I got you. All those years you had me, I got you. We went out to LA. Let's hang out. That's a friend. No, I wasn't like, yo, man, I've been carrying this 10 years, fool. No, a boy. But it's amazing that when you are successful, that not everybody is going to be happy for you. They might even, it'll change the relationship. And so when people in these Midwestern states started to lose their jobs, they might have voted for Obama. I even saw a bumper sticker years ago called Rednecks for Obama in 2008, I swear, it's called Rednecks for Obama. I saw another, there was an organization called Old White Men for Obama. I'm not making this up. But then once the economy tanked and people started to lose their jobs, now Obama let us down. We hate him. He made us lose our jobs. And you might say, how can they blame the president for all of this, right? But there's an African proverb that says the tallest trees, what? I know that one. The tallest trees catch the most wind. The tallest trees catch the most wind. So the higher you go, the more prominent your position is, the more you flat you're gonna catch. The more people are gonna blame you for stuff. Like the quarterback on a football team, right? The team does well, the quarterback is the greatest. Oh yes, he's great. Team loses, get rid of the quarterback. You know? So even though some of these policies were not created by President Obama at all, it was under Clinton. And even though some of these mostly white people in the Midwest and the Rust Belt states voted for Obama, once they started to see their economic condition go downhill, it completely changed the relationship. And so unfortunately, again, people who are working for a long time in the secondary sector cannot necessarily easily transfer to the primary, to the tertiary sector. Definitely not the coordinator sector. It's very difficult. Most of you all won't experience that because obviously you're not working in a factory. I've had students that work, when I taught at Austin P, I had lots of students that worked in factories when I taught at Austin P. And they were in school at Austin P to try to change that situation. And so very difficult to make that transition. But if you happen to be in the tertiary sector, you had great gains. Okay, so this video is still on. Maybe, hopefully they don't figure it out. It should have cut off. But. Okay, so just FYI, since someone asked, a student asked, not just someone, a student. Just FYI, I'm going to notice that you have a couple of assignments. You can read over. They're not due until April 10th. But just so you can get, you want to read them over. If you are in a group, April the 10th, I'll talk about this a lot more on Monday. You need to get your group together, read the instructions for writing your draft term paper, just a draft, which is essentially a lesson plan click here, read the instructions. I'll go over this in a lot more detail on next Monday. Now, the rest of you all who are not planning careers in education, you're doing GIS. The GIS people, you will work as individuals on this population pyramid assignment. You will not work in groups, GIS people. You're working how? As individuals. You're not working as groups. Not working as groups, right? I don't want to have anybody, oh, Dr. Padgett, oh, you hadn't told us this. So I'll talk about this. Also, you might want to listen. It's 9:30 tomorrow. There's a great opportunity if you can make it. So there's be more extra credit.
9:30 in the morning?
Yes. If you make it great, click on the link, follow the instructions. So I'll see you all next week, Monday. If you have any other questions, for those of you who are watching out there, which is nobody, but we will have this recording available to you.
Extra credit?
There will be more extra credit, don't worry.
I couldn't go last time.
There will be more, excuse me?
We can do all of it.
Yes, you can do as much extra credit as is made available. But there will be other extra credit made available.
Question. As far, I've actually looked at the extra credit you posted about tomorrow. Do we have to just attend or like do a paper on what we were discussing? I mean,
Yeah, you have to do it and write an essay, yes.
how long is the essay?
600 words.
600 words. And this extra credit, does it go to like just the extra grade if we do it, or like does it get added on?